less than 2% of those calls are actually being monitored. We've all heard that this call is being recorded for training. Are you really monitoring it? Someone was actually going back, listening. I don't have time to read the data that I have now that I didn't have before. I might have had the best call, but my after work is fundamentally incorrect. I might be tired and my note taking is horrible. Someone else is going to look at that as well. Scale that. Didn't know that was happening. What's the results of that?
Jim Jenks, thanks for joining the hot seat here. I will rail about marketing buzzwords. It's just I've been in tech for too long at this point that everything just turns into a buzzword at some point. And before ChatGPT launched, and we have this kind of current version now of AI, there was a lot of people branding AI that were in this like machine learning space, and the tech nerds, you'd be like, it's not really AI, and you'd be like, well, it's whatever. And the marketing department's like AI. But recently we've had this just really just hockey stick explosion. It feels like tech has just gone vertical in now what is the AI space.
Mm-hmm.
And Observe.AI has been in this for a long time now. And I'm curious to start, from your perspective, how have things changed for you? I mean, let's call this like since like early 24 to now, late
Mm-hmm.
25.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great question. Having a chance to be here in the early 2024s, having coming from another, call it AI company, I think the fundamental change we're seeing, Max, is the technology in and itself. And when I say that, used to be, hey, we have our own proprietary LLM. That was a good thing, right? Companies said, wow, you really have that?
Mm-hmm.
To today, you hear words like optionality. You'll hear multimodals. You'll hear, multiple LLM models talking to each other. And then last year, Agentic came out, and you talk to, and if you're watching NVIDIA CEO talk about the next gen, AI. What does that mean? How do I apply that? Not every use case would facilitate using Agentic, but to your point, that hockey stick that grows. What I might say today to a client and say, yeah, I'll show you my roadmap, might change tomorrow. I mean, it's that scary, right? So the old days where you used to say, hey, let's do a QBR, blah, blah, blah. If I did a monthly business review, we're still talking about new technology that's there. And because of that, I think what we're going to see are companies that have digested agentic and the foundational pieces of new technology move much swifter, provide perhaps a better consulting practice to their clients. And along with that comes customization. But yeah, we can talk about a number of things: customization, scale, how do you do that for everybody, best practices. But fundamentally, I think the technology has changed and continues to advance. Um, and I would predict, I mean, we're not going to see that slow down. So it's fasten the seatbelt and brace. And how do we do that? How do we do that? How do we scale with that?
I've lived through a few hype cycles. Well, a few. I mean, it feels like everybody's trying to create a hype cycle, right? Like, is 5G really a transformational technology or not? Who knows, right? But um, the the early, accessible access to the internet in the late 90s, right, was transformational. Now, early entrance into the space and what they thought was going to actually be the dominant, business outcome wasn't the case. We went through, like you saw, the dot-com boom and bust. But it was transformational, and I feel like um, search going from indexes and lists and discovery to relevance with Google
Mm-hmm.
was another really big transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's redefined how we interact with technology. And what's exciting to me about AI has been not necessarily all of the like this is the end of work and the end of this and the end of that. It's really this new interface that we now have to interact with a platform, right? I'm not going to say a computer, I'm going to say a platform where, going from having to learn how to search on Google to being able to have a natural conversation with an AI tool, and then have that AI tool be able to understand what it is that you're actually looking for, and then go out and be able to do work, and then be able to refine that conversation and then have that across different modality has been incredible to watch. And and I'm very optimistic. Like, I'm an optimistic technologist. Like, this has changed the world. We don't know what's true and what's not true at this point, but we know it's changed the world. In the world of like, you know, in the business world, the B2B world, we talk about service providers and we talk about platforms that are coming after and attacking business problems. What are business problems that we're trying to alleviate and improve business efficiency, productivity, revenue generations, these different things. And AI has been out there, especially in the contact center, for a lot of space. And
Mm,
so now I look at this and I kind of immediately go to like, how does somebody start separating fact from fiction of
mm.
what's really happening and what's a hype cycle, what's not the hype cycle, and what's everybody saying we have AI versus, oh, they're coming for your jobs, well, that's not really the case. But like, what's flushing out right now, with that for AI?
Great, great segue. And you talk about, we've been doing this a long time, and you talk about the hype cycle from prem to cloud, the internet in general, this thing called unified communications, UCaaS, hosted phone systems. Slowly, people adopting that, right? That turned into, to your point, contact center. Um, Contact center in the cloud. Well, what does that mean? Doesn't mean that premise is going away at all, but the adoption of, do I embrace it? I think it's a challenge for every SMB, midsize enterprise client. And as we get into this new, say, realm of the next generation of AI, everybody wants to say it, talk it. You and I talk to technology advisors every day, and what I can continually see is how do I embrace that as a TA myself, to be able to say to my existing clients, "Hey, it's okay. This stuff's growing. It's okay," meaning I'm here for you to talk about what I'm seeing in this growth of all the suppliers that are behind me that I can represent. We're seeing absolute traction in the contact center space because you think about, and let's don't just don't talk code here. You think about anything that we do in any given day. Who are we calling? Who are we talking to? My auto insurance company, a vertical, a healthcare, financial. I was just online earlier talking to somebody else before this call today about some finance stuff. We're experiencing contact centers as individuals every single day, and one can say, "Oh, AI is going to take people away," and yes, we'll hear stories of Salesforce riffing people because he wants to replace with AI. Everyone, it's fine. What are we going to see some of that? I think the idea is that you're augmenting, you're helping, particularly. I mean, our history in 8 years of this has been, we're going to augment that agent, right? We're going to augment that. We're going to help that agent be a better agent. I might be ramping up in my new role, and I get a call, and how nice is it to get a pop-up screen? Hey, you're talking to Max. He's called in X amount of times. He's called in about this order. Hey, Max, are you calling about this order? As a person, as a human being.
Let me
Now,
ask you.
I can open 8 other windows and scrape all that and try to figure it out. Hang on 1 second, Max. Let's see if I can find this.
Mhm.
Or, I'm seeing a bunch of things about your account. Which one are you talking about today, right? How do I make that agent a better agent? And in a post world, it's as a supervisor, I can now see how Jim was handling that call. Is he compliant? Is he asking the right questions that we want him to ask? How was the emotional sentiment analysis right on that call? Is there an opportunity for some coaching there? Are all my people doing the same thing on a Friday afternoon when they're tired? AI doesn't necessarily have to be in the front end of the contact center. right? But we are seeing that as a monumental shift of acceptance. Okay, let me say that in a different way. We're seeing so many suppliers and technologies, and why? Because people are creating these, I'll say it, the voice bots, right? They're tired of the legacy IVRs. They're tired of pressing one, two, like, right? So, you might experience a bot after you hit two or three because a client's trying to see what AI would be in their world, right? There's opportunities now where you don't have to rip things out and you want to augment what you have without going in full board. So you see that more and more in the contact center space.
So I want to talk about virtual agents
Mhm.
and this, but before I get there, something very common I see when I talked with a company about their contact center is, globalization has already hit most organizations running contact centers, and they're what I mean by that is the BPOs are already deployed. You see staffing that's already changed, where commonly they're running like a level 2, level 3 in house, and they're running 10, 20x the amount of staff through a BPO, and they're doing that. And so, from my viewpoint, when we start talking about like when people have this AI is coming for people's jobs in the contact center conversation, the first thing that comes to my mind is like which job, right? Like
Right.
is and it I don't say this to be like really controversial or hyperbolic about it, but it how much of this is really the risk to the BPO and people staffing inside of the BPOs, and how much now is this really a replacement risk for companies that have contact centers that already have, like a tier 2 or tier 3 in-house escalation path? Like what,
Yeah.
and I'm okay. I'm going to leave it there, and I've got like a few follow-ups.
We see exactly what you're describing. Yes, there is some attrition with that person up front being replaced by a voice bot. If that voice bot can do anything and everything that a human can be, but I would be willing to say that more than 20-30% of these companies are putting that voice bot up front so that the agent can actually be more productive on the back end. If I don't have to handle all the authentication and mundane tactical questions, and that can be and I can have calls routed to me that best fit my skill set, I'm going to be a better agent. And quite frankly, I might be a happy camper and stay with that company longer because I'm not doing this monotonous work all the time. So take that away. You're not taking my employment away, right? But you're helping me be a better agent by taking some of those mundane tasks away. And quite frankly, people we've seen it. Even you talk about generations, Z's, X's. Hey, I'm a boomer. I'll admit it. I'm the guy that's like agent, agent, agent. Right? I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be honest with you. I talked to one the other day, being in the business, and I'm like, okay, I'll give this thing a try. It sounded so human like, and I'm pushing the envelope. I'm interrupting it.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
dog and all these background noises are happening, and it was a solicitation for a donation. And because of the bot, because I even said, "Are you a robot?" I mean, it was talking to me. I made a donation. I mean, it was for a good
Well,
cause. No
this is
less,
the
but yeah,
this is the funny thing about it, right? Where it's like I'm not too dissimilar here. I think we've had very similar. I'll have like we can go into some rants about this stuff. I I think the missing piece for a lot of people is when you call when you call service, you call a sales line, like you're calling to do something. You need something, right? And what I care about is can it get can I get what I need, and how fast does it take? How long does it take to get there? And the stuff that makes me crazy and all these ones, first off, companies that don't have virtual hold at this point, I hate you. But um which is also probably a good argument to have, some sort of, AI in line. But it's like when you have the fake agent, right? Where you just like, you're talking to a robot, and then it gives like the fake keyboard clicking in the thing. It's like instantaneously like I'm checked out, I'm done. Or
well, that
what other
that was great
example?
back in the day, right? That was like, hey, this is kind of cool, but it's
Yeah.
unacceptable now. Yeah.
Or you see these like half integrated systems where it's like if you ask me to authenticate and I have to jump through like 5 hoops to authenticate, and then I actually get to a human, and then it's like you have to re-authenticate the whole thing. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, and I feel like a lot of these things, like the customer satisfaction bars are relatively low. Like really simple things that landmines you're stepping on that are causing problems that affect your CSAT at this point.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. We when you talk about CSAT, it makes me think of what are the key metrics of success,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you and I both read the articles. I think MIT came out with one not too long ago, a month ago. X percent, like 90+% of these AI projects fail. Well, you have to dig into that. They're failing, you know, to your point. Am I looking at the right metrics for success? Everyone wants their CSAT to go up. But if I expect that from the bot that I haven't really identified what I want it to do and set that up, then it's going to fail. It's going to fail. It can be the best bot in the world, right? So the key with that we have found is not just provide clients information of if they're saying the right things, but why. Dig into that a little bit further. Why is that happening? Why aren't they saying the right things? Dig into the behavior of that, and then do changes internally because of that. Then that will eventually. You talk about the metrics on CSAT. That's a whole nother half hour plus. Um, is it answer time, right? Handling time, hold time. How many times do I have to transfer it? Why are those clients dropping off? If we don't know that as a client, those are key things that you have to identify.
Okay, so before we get back to deflection here, you touched on this briefly, which now I think universally we're talking about like agent assist, right? How do you use AI to assist the agent, and what can be done, right? And and I've always loved this approach to contact center because when you start really like digging into contact center metrics and the operations of contact centers and like the business of the contact center, you get into some really interesting stats and numbers. And it's like, you know, what's your retention rate for your agents? Like how long does it take you to hire, train, and make an agent productive? How
Mm-hmm.
long do you retain that agent once it's there? What's your churn rate within that? And you look at these things, and of course there's a lot of technology that then comes out that WFO and WFM of like and but that doesn't solve that problem. That just tells you like stats, like how many people do I have to have online, and then how do I
Right.
adjust for seasonality and these sorts of things. But I've always kind of thought it was really interesting when you start digging into seasoned contact center leaders that really understand like they're fighting churn as like their number one thing that they're really dealing with inside of the organization. Because if you can take an average churn rate of 30% and cut that in half, like it changes everything for you.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
And so the assist is really, I think the assist is always fascinating to me. And the second part of it is is onboarding and training, because like Observe.AI didn't start with we're going to give you a virtual agent. You guys started in a very different space and have kind of moved forward there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Appreciate you bringing it up. You're right. Agent assist is one of those. If you don't know what you're looking for, how do you coach that agent live? How do you coach them real time? Observe 8 years ago started with post analytics, with the mantra of guess how many clients are recording the calls. We've all heard that this call is being
Mm-hmm.
recorded for training, and really, are you really monitoring it? Are you really going to go back there? And well, some were, but we found, and reports would confirm this, less than 2% of those calls were actually being monitored. Someone was actually going back, looking at, listening to, and now technologies and there's the gongs of the world that kind of look at those and analyze those calls. Our whole mantra is built on give me your call recordings, and continues to be, and I'll QA those, right? I'll provide quality assurance. So much data was coming back that grew into auto QA, that grew into summarization. I don't have time to read the data that I have now that I didn't have before. This is great. Now what do I do with it, right? Much less where do I store it and who has it and all those other things. But we grew knowing that we wanted to eventually get into the agent assist, and then now earlier this year launching the voice piece to create that entire infinity loop. But we built that on the basis of Mr. Client, this isn't me trying to guess what your agents might be saying or what your customers are calling in for. These are your calls. These are your calls. So tell you what, why don't we do a proof of concept? What do you mean? What does that mean? Give me your call recordings. Give me a good set of call recordings I can ingest to my model, and let's give me a couple weeks. I'll come back to you, and we'll do a report, a readout. We're
Hmm.
seeing these elements. We're seeing these behaviors, whether it be per day or per metric, or whether it's insurance, hospitality, services, right? So what we're doing all along that is building our parameters for the next one in that vertical, right? So we're getting more defined in every vertical because of what we're seeing, and specifically designed for the contact center space. Not for a car dealer space, not for banking industries, credit cards. I mean, we for contact centers specifically, not sales teams. Now, who knows where the future might go, but
Right.
contact centers, and that grew into the agent assist that we're talking about. Where now, whether it's summarization, something we call knowledge AI, where it's scraping different CRM systems within the system. So you're not having that lag of, hang on, let me go check. I got 8 windows open here. Let me go check to see where that order is. Let me follow it through. Imagine, proactively all that information is popping up for you on your screen to help your client. Quicker call, right? Higher satisfaction, shorter handling time. Like you mentioned, they want to get in and get out. They don't want to get in there and talk about weather and sports and all that. Just give me my information. I've got a busy day. I got to go, kind of thing.
Um, I find an expectation that, oh, we're going to go out and buy an AI tool and
Mm-hmm.
we're just going to turn it on. And it's like, oh, it's Thursday and we sign a contract and, Monday we can just flip a switch and it's just going to take over for us. And I find still people really surprised with how much configuration and training and you
Calibration.
know
Yeah.
that you have to do on these things. And now it's getting a lot better. And I'm curious. I want to talk to you about this more, but a few years ago, like you had to go through and you had to like create these giant flowcharts and process and decision trees and like input output. Like if they ask this, give it this response. And the amount of effort that would take to actually go through and try to train or just understand your own internal knowledge base of what knowledge you were exposing to this tool of like, is this accurate? Is this inaccurate knowledge? How is that changing? And how are you tackling that with customers that are onboarding?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great question. Again, 8 years ago, post analytics, QA, auto QA was born based on call records we had. Sound technology continues to be, we continue to advance, and what kind of data we want to output there. Something we call moments. Mr. Klein, we'll create moments for you specific to different events that are happening in your world. And to your point, we have a team that's on the back end calibrating what those moments might be. How's that data? How are you using it? Right. So to your point, a lot of clients needed coaching on and or QBRs on how you're using the data. What are you doing with it? Now advanced to the front end, what you're referring to, moreover, is not even probably 2 years ago. What would be a 2-3 minute conversation would take weeks to build.
Mm-hmm.
The coding on it, I mean, I remember looking at the coding for a 2 minute conversation, 1,200 lines plus of code, right? Oh, you didn't want it to say this accent. Oh, you didn't want to say this word. Well, okay, give me a week or two and I'll get back and I'll get that corrected.
Mm-hmm.
Today, without code, I can go in. I'm on the West Coast. What we're seeing, and part of that is agentic, and part of it's the use of multiple large language models. So companies that are providing these services need to articulate to their clients how they're doing that, which ones use what, because the client doesn't know, is Claude better than Anthropic? That's better than Chat. That's better. And
So
you mentioned platform earlier, and I appreciate that because what point systems do are one thing. What platforms could do are a number of things, but you've got to be able to articulate to your client, look, this is way too much to digest. Okay. Let's start where the biggest hemorrhaging point is, right? And then the whole crawl, walk, run theory. Let's get your confidence level up with what we can do, what that can provide. and then you grow with that client. You grow
So
with the client. Yeah.
issue with LLMs is still hallucinations. We still see it, data leakage.
Mm-hmm.
We still see if you start talking about agentic, right? Like you're gonna have your AI go out and connect, and I mean, look, agentic with MCP. There's some amazing technology of it there, but now you start talking about if you're running a brand and you've got customers calling into your brand, like there's another set of safety rails that you're going to want to have on these tools. Like is the LLM hallucinating, talking to somebody, or can they break out of the rails? And you see these examples of like somebody chatting with some bot that convinces it to sell them a car for $1, right? Or like it. And then of course, do you trust the information that the model is being fed and looking or interacting with and then building? So how do you go and take that? I mean, I love the like crawl walk run of like we're going to do QA and recording and analysis of existing calls, and then we're going to take and feed that into Assist, because
Mm-hmm.
then you're trading on your own corpus of information, right? You would hope that after whatever period of time, you're going to be able to have like a repository of like, we think this is good interactions with good information to
Mm-hmm.
then start providing some element of either assist or then ultimately like a deflection for. But you still have to deal with like stuff changes, information changes, products change, service changes, policies change, or maybe it was just bad data to begin with. Like how do people create safety rails for themselves with this stuff?
Yeah, you you have to build it with the idea of the safety rails in mind. You have to be able to tell the machine when it goes a certain direction to come back, or that call is escalated, or you know what, I don't know that answer. Let me get you to a live person, as opposed to trying to make things up. Those have to be documented inside the machine. Those guardrails have to be written for that. Something we're doing to help with that is, we talk about the voice agent up front, and if the client doesn't want the back end, or they're not ready for the agent real time assist right away, we're still QAing those voice agents on their behalf. So we'll come back to them and say, we're seeing trends in this area. Something changed in the business. Should we change this voice bot? We're seeing these things. Because to your point, they're not going to call into that 800 number every single time and have the identical experience every single time. They want to know when it goes and maybe pushes those rails where things need to be changed. And to your point, compliancy rules, regulations, they're going to change on a daily basis. And the expectation is we've got to get that word out to everybody today, not 2 weeks from now, but the new message has to be delivered today. So yeah, those those are all things that clients need to watch out for, to make sure the providers can look at those hallucinations and what those risks are, and be able to identify how far the conversation goes before it's okay. You know what? Hey, that's a great question. How am I going to handle that? Does it get escalated, or does the bot freeze up? Is that when it stalls? Do you hang up and lose someone, or do you take the time to actually? Hey, that's a great question, Mr. Client. Let me get you to someone who can help you. Answer it better than I can today. You know?
If you go back to the Stone Ages of contact center, right? You had a PBX in an office. You had a different platform doing call distribution and queuing. You had a different platform that was doing IVR. You had a different platform that was doing call recordings. You had a different platform, right? There was like, so it started out as just like we have a really big PBX and we have to like plug all these things into this PBX to make this stuff work. And then as time has passed, that functionality then started integrating into the PBX. The PBX is all went IP native. Then we went to cloud, right? And so you go multi-tenant cloud. And so now we have this aggressive consolidation, right? When there was there was a split. There was like a UCAS vendor and there was a CCAS vendor, and now there's like the UCAS and CCAS
Mm-hmm.
platforms are all coming together and trying to be
Mm-hmm.
this unified experience. Do you think about this in terms of like being a solution that overlays on top of another platform? It gives you the ability to integrate with any platform and take on a customer regardless of which platform they're on. So there's advantages to that.
Mm-hmm.
But then the flip side of that becomes these platforms are trying to move horizontal as quickly as possible to have everything verticalized within them. Not saying that that's the best solution, or that's the best technology, but that bundle becomes more and more compelling just because default decisions have already been made. Um, how how does this landscape continue to change, and how do you view yourselves changing with it?
Excellent question. I look at the history of UCAS, CCAS, and I can't help but think there are some people that are still in that Stone Age. Um, and I
A
say
lot of
that with
them.
all due respect, right? They're out there. They're
Yeah.
absolutely out there, and there's reasons why they need to stay there because whatever their data is or their business is, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to go in the cloud and they want to hug it and see it. And we used to tease people about that, back in the day, not going to the cloud. It's not safe. It's not this. But no, you raise a good point. If I'm a contact center provider, um, and they're wildly successful providing native solutions, right? Growing organically and be able to expand my portfolio with products. I want to be able to do everything to everybody and every client,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it's WFM, WFO, summarization, the voice. I mean, we see it every day. You and I can name off a half dozen of them now that are wildly successful. Clients look at that and go, well, to your point, if I need something else different and or this provider, this contact center provider doesn't have such product, then I'm back to the PBX mind of now I got to go buy a point solution for that.
Mm-hmm.
And we see more in the mid-sized enterprise clients as their needs grow, their needs get more complex, other M&As happen, other requests come in from their boards, investors, information that they don't have. They're challenged because their contact center provider may or may not have that.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? They go out and look for different point solutions. So I see I see a cycle of what we saw a decade ago. Customers buying more point solutions today to fulfill those gaps. And from the supplier side, this constant ebb and flow of everyone's agnostic and we want to be part of that contact center play. And the contact center players saying, okay, yeah, we want to have unlimited amount of people in our quote unquote marketplace. So our customers have that choice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that, Mr. Customer. Here's a website, go point and click, and full integrations all in, right? But I see with that a challenge at the surface level of if I'm the client, how much of that can I rely on my supplier to give me the best of what I can? And that's why we dive into the technology advisors. The TAs for us provide that agnostic, neutral approach to be able to say, Mr. Client, you can have what you need without a forklift, right? Just simply have this as an overlay, right? And having that as an overlay allows you to keep that data, keep that AI technology with you wherever you might want to go. We pride ourselves on just saying we're neutral, agnostic. We don't get into the you're moving to this context. Great, we integrate with all of them.
Yeah.
It's not we're not asked well who should I pick, who should I choose. Hey, we're thinking about moving off of XYZ. We really don't get into that. We get more into where are your pain points, where are the business initiatives, what are you trying to accomplish, can we provide that for you? And of course, we get into those. Hey, compare yourself against this voice AI, or hey, this provider saying they can do this kind of QA summarization or WFM now. Tell me about yours. And it's a constant day to day thing. It's a constant conversation when we
It,
get
it
into those proposal stages for sure.
it creates an interesting conflict for the contact center, right? Because the contact centers, for the most part, I mean, now we see disruptors coming in, but for the most part, contact centers exist by selling name seats, right? How many
Mm-hmm.
licenses are we selling?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's some really big ones that then come to market with their own IVAs, and they license their IVAs on its per seat count, right? And it's like this, and of course the reason they're doing that is because they're trying not to cannibalize their own revenue.
Correct.
And even though now they want to offer this functionality they're being asked for and that they know that the market is moving towards, it's like, how do you offer this functionality without cannibalizing your existing revenue? And it creates this really weird conflict internally. And I look at this and say, okay, if the promise of technology and computing, especially in a cloud environment, becomes elasticity. Why are people not just immediately going to consumption based, right? Maybe as a customer, there's examples where I want to have fixed capacity and I want to have capped capacity, but that's a decision I'm making that says I want to only spend $10,000 a month on this or whatever the
Right.
number is.
Right.
Um, and that's a different construct from saying like, oh, we're looking at trying to do deflection for, password resets, which we know we get X amount of percentage of our calls are password resets, and we could put that into an IVA and we could do the password resets in the IVA, or, I mean, pick any industry, pharmacies, right? Like I want to do a prescription refill. Like, like there's things that are relatively simple, straightforward that occur, a million times a day for you that are really low hanging fruit to take away and try to automate. But it does feel like there's this disconnection of how a lot of this industry is approaching it that's not really customer friendly or customer centric.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up a good point. People are bleeding, hemorrhaging. They're trying to fix different needs and problems. And with the use of new technologies, let's stay on the conversation of IVAs, we're seeing more and more people use that data in a proactive way
Mm-hmm.
to help the business in and itself. Let me give you a story I'd love to have. I love working on the yard on the weekends, using all kinds of tools. And for me, any new gadget for the yard is a toy. We're working with a client, and the client was saying, go back to your point on consumption model versus a license. The seasonality is important, right? Businesses say, I'm not going to do that license. I'm trying to do the ROI on that piece, and I'm trying to do a TCO on that. That doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more and more IVA clients and suppliers that are doing a consumption model. We have our own. But the idea being, okay, you use this amount of minutes. What's happening, Mr. Client? We saw a spike in this particular month, thousands of calls coming in per day. Oh, and guess what? They're calling about a particular. So it's a yard company. They're calling about a particular sprayer that they purchased that clogs up after so much use,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they're out there doing their yard work or whatever, and the thing's clogging up. As they did the analysis, their Q&A these calls, they learned that this particular sprayer had a problem. There was a part in this sprayer, some washer device in the sprayer, that after so many hours of use was getting clogged. Now, they could have changed the IVA to say, hey, Jim, you have this sprayer. This is how you do it, and reactively responded to all of those, which they did. But they took it a step further and they said, how many sprayers of this have been purchased over the last X period of time? And what does our point of sale system say? Do we have that contact information of that person who bought that sprayer? Imagine proactively now telling a voice bot to go call Jim and say, hey, that sprayer you bought a few months ago, have you had a chance to use that yet? No, it's still in the box. Oh, when you use it, we found some issues, blah, blah, blah. You can either return it, recall it, or I can send you owner's manual. Yeah. How about that, right?
Yeah.
The ability to now use technology and an IVA to proactively help their business. And sure, they probably lowered some of the calls coming in about the sprayer, but more importantly, they have a very happy client that, like, wow, I'm impressed. You're doing this for me, letting me know ahead of time. That's pretty cool.
The call recording analysis, right? It starts from a QA standpoint, right? Where it's like, okay, maybe it's a compliance requirement. We have to listen to our calls and confirm that we're, adhering to our compliance mandates. Or maybe it's we're just trying to, train and track our what our agents are saying and as a training exercise. But then you take a step back from it, and it's amazing to me because you think about it, like if you have a customer base that's calling you and talking to you, like the amount of information that you can glean from that in terms of product demand
Right.
or I hate the TCO ROI thing because it's like so disconnected from reality for so many organizations. But if you say, what's the TCO, what's the ROI on establishing that your customers are asking you for a product revision that you could then come to market with and then sell and generate additional revenue from. Like what's that cost? Calculate that for your business,
Right,
right?
right, right. It
Um,
kind of gets into the whole, who are the buyers for all of this now, right?
mhm,
It moved from, we talked about the cloud earlier, moved from IT, and I'll age myself here. I used to talk to, okay, Mr. Client, they had a data contact and they had a voice contact, and the voice
mhm.
contact did all the PBX, the data person did all the internet and IT, right? What are we talking to now? We're talking to COOs, CIOs. You talk about brand, Max. I mean, it's CMOs. The CMO is now involved in. I want to see that demonstration. I want to, cater to these moments when they're talking about this color or that color, or maybe my competition. CMO wants all that. You're absolutely right. We're seeing a shift in the buying process, procurement process, the personas of who's involved in that sale go from IT to other business units in the organizations, and quite frankly, other use cases, multiple use cases in the same organization. Right?
How much of this is being deployed as a reaction to pain versus, a transformation and altering operations because there's like a revenue or efficiency play, right? Well, efficiency, I guess, would be a pain response too, right? So it's like how much of this is still like a reaction to pain, and how much of this is a transformational because we're looking to do business differently and go after revenue differently.
I'd say more than 60% today is based on
Mm-hmm.
pain points. That and to your point, those 60% then turn it into, oh, can we do XYZ more? Can we now turn it into the brand, or business efficiencies, operational efficiencies? But for the most part, it's acceptance of, and then where is that pain, and so long as that pain and the solution can be measured. um, as much as we don't want ROI, TCO, those are all very, very much part of all of that now. And the mindset of they're still trying to figure out the financial piece to it, um, to make sure that's solid. But it's majority pain as they continue to accept the technology and move forward. Yeah.
Let's talk about pain points. Uh, the elephant in the room, of course, is humans, right? We're spending a ton of money having people. Actually, we should talk about pain points in three chunks, right? So I don't want to drive this too much in terms of agent replacement and IVA, right? But I'll start there because that's the elephant, right? So the elephant is we're spending a ton on our BPO. We have a lot of staffing. We have a lot of churn. We went off the hamster wheel of like trying to hire and retain, right? And that becomes a big budget expense line item that people are contending with across everything.
Mhm.
Comes down to that. So that's
Mhm.
that's the elephant, right? So we can come back to that part. But what are other common pain points that you're really seeing that people are looking at and saying, "Hey, we really need to solve this problem," and they're coming to fix?
Agent retention, churn, attrition
Mm-hmm.
is big. Sure, the inevitables. I want to shorten the handling time. I want to shorten the escalation time. But in today's world, it's majority, I would say, volume of calls coming in combined with the agent churn. So if you can help me, train agents quicker, faster, retain agents, so I'm not constantly replacing, whether I'm a BPO organization or not. I might have multiple BPOs because I have better success rate on retention in itself. Um, all of the other ancillaries of shortening the call, uh, shortening the average handling time, all that, those all become metrics if you can solidify the agent churn. Um,
Um, for somebody watching, and having this problem with agent churn, like pre-state, post-state, what kind of stats and wins are you seeing with your customers?
whether it be financial, insurance, healthcare, transportation, hospitality, I should say. Made a new word there.
Yeah,
Um,
I got it.
we're seeing 40, 50, 60% different type of overhead operational efficiency reductions, uh, based on the call volume, based on what we can provide. We're seeing success in all those verticals. Um, Again, the percents vary from each one what they see operationally,
Mhm.
to then that expands into, okay, if I can handle X period of calls more, what is that agent retention going to be? What is that customer satisfaction going to relate to be? But we see all those every day, every day.
How I get really simplistic with a lot of these things in my brain, right? And I think if in the IT world, right? If you're working an IT help desk job and like your entire day to day life is like helping people reset their passwords, you have a very miserable experience. You do not enjoy your job and you want out, right? And that becomes, it's horrible for everybody. It's horrible for the person that needs to reset their password, and it's horrible for the person resetting the password. And I think about that a lot with the contact center as well. When you talk about agents in the contact center and just I don't want to say like happiness as a metric of the agent, right? But what is the actual work that they're doing? And is it enjoyable and fulfilling, or is it not? Right. And so, I mean, how much of this is just elevating what the person is doing on the calls that they're handling as an improvement in their metric and churn and everything else.
So you see anything from, if I can handle the call easier because I'm being helped, being coached, if my as an agent, if my wrap up time, my ability to summarize that is
Oh,
shortened,
geez, I haven't even thought about
um,
that yet.
right, is if my wrap up time and my accountability and my actionable next steps are more accurate, right? I might be tired, and my note taking is horrible. My call to action after that, right? I'm supposed to summarize that, and oh, that's right, I'm supposed to put that into my CRM system because someone else is going to look at that as well. I might have had the best call, but my after work, right, is fundamentally incorrect or accurate. Scale that, scale that, and what's the results of that based on who looks at that or what the action items are. If we can improve all of those, right, we roll all up to operational efficiency. If we can prove that to a client, that we're going to be able to help them with those pieces to that, and then you turn that into a tangible action of what's the value of doing that. That's where the rubber hits the road. um, I mean, agent attrition, churn, handling time, those are yada yada. Those are all table stakes now. Now it's a matter of, what am I doing with that information?
Mm-hmm.
Keep talking about operational efficiency, Jim. So what does that mean? It's taking that data and putting it back into the business to have the business better perform based on information that is coming from their clients. So it's not, oh, I'm guessing at what I should be doing next. It's taking the raw data, inaccurate or accurate, and doing something with it.
So, I mean, does the customer still have to go out and have their own data analytics team, data science team to start, I mean, mining? By the way, I want to come back to the whole wrap up, but to mine all this data, or have we gotten to a point where you're now surfacing things or saying like, hey, by the way, here's your dashboard, and we're seeing, like here's a trend line of topics that we're seeing that's increasing. How much of this is actually intelligence in the platform versus, I can go find it if I'm hunting for it.
Excellent question. What we're seeing too is a big trend. They're getting this information, they're getting this data, wherever they store it. We're seeing clients repurpose agents and saying, hey, you know this data, you were an agent before, but let's give you a different role, let's give you a promotion where you're going to fundamentally look at all this data and this QA and help us, right? And be a better, it's not even a supervisor, right? It's now someone, it's almost a QA person looking at the data.
Mm-hmm.
We're finding that we work with clients. I talk about the account management team afterwards, almost like a behavioral change, meaning I'm going to act differently if I know a robot's watching me, or if someone's summarizing what I'm saying or missaying, right? I might have a different behavior
Mm-hmm.
because of that, because I know my supervisor now is, going to evaluate me, and quite frankly, I might be paid differently based on my accuracy. But change management is big. So people are looking at that data, how they use that data, putting people in roles to review and QA that data to better the business, right? So we're seeing a trend with more and more like that, because a lot of times we'll have a QBR and it's like, wow, didn't know that was happening. Thank you. And they're writing notes. I'm going to go talk to Sam about this, that, and the other thing. But no, the reality is we're going to continue to see that. Um, Companies will handle that in different ways of how they want it. Some will ask us to manage that for them, continue to show us those trends. But what they do with those trends and that data is different for every client.
I read something a long time ago, and the point was the success of the franchise model is being able to scale
Mm-hmm.
the business and the experience of your customer
Mm-hmm.
with the, with to scale the experience and the consistency of the experience with the lowest paid workforce available, basically, right? Like if you're talking about fast food, you're going to go out and put a fast food restaurant. You're not talking about a high paid workforce, right? But now you
Mm-hmm.
have to want to scale and have a consistent experience across every single one of those locations.
Mm-hmm.
And like understanding that and thinking about that is really, like, there's so many layers to that onion you can peel through. But then you think about it, I mean, it's a little big brother as to say it, but if every interaction across everything that you're talking about from terms of a customer, you can track, record, monitor, and improve the experience and the consistency of that interaction with that customer, you can scale your business in a very different way, right? Because now you can have a consistent experience and the customer can have, and you can find abnormalities, right? You want to know when a customer has a bad experience because you don't want them on social media talking about their bad experience.
Right. Right.
You want to be able to proactively be like, "Hey, I'm sorry you had this bad experience. We're gonna deal with it," right?
Right. 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 You're talking about being able to get information that used to take much longer period of time to digest it and then to react to that. And that goes into the comment we made earlier in the show, and that was what do I do with the data, and then how quickly can I respond to that, and how fast this technology is growing, to the point where how do you slow it down,
Mm-hmm.
or it's going to I want to partner with someone who knows where it's going to go 2-3 years from now, and not someone who can just help me with my needs today. But we're seeing clients say vendor of choice will be someone who can help me do my journey 3-4 years from now. um, so I don't have to keep switching these point solutions and other vendors, right? They want to know, okay, hey, I'm doing a gamification for my people. Can you help me with that? What insights, what workflows? So we have to have data that can support what they want to do and what changes they want.
It really is an interesting switch when you start talking about like who then owns this technology and this stuff internally inside of an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, contact centers, customer support organizations, PR, they've had to deal with this for a while now, which is, maybe you had your frontline, agents or BPO, whatever it was, right, answering the phone, or maybe it was email, electronic, or you had a chat bot or something, chat that you were doing. But then social media comes out and becomes this like thing that you have to monitor and you have to respond to, and your response is now as public as the initial complaint, right? So then you end up with teams, and people have a dedicated team for social media. Well, who's responsible for that social media team? Is that social media team a customer support, customer service function, or is this now a marketing, PR, branding function for the business, right? Because you want to have positive public interactions with people, um, and but all of those interactions, every people end up on social media after they've had some other experience. They were at your store, they were at your building, they were at your bank, they called in, they were online, whatever it is. There's some other interaction that then prompted that first, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you think about all of us have the experience on our phones, and it's kind of scary. But you raise a whole nother question and commentary of chat, websites, social media, everything that we're doing, whether it be CCTV, everything we're doing is being watched by social media and AI, to the point where people are, hey, you hit our website the other day, you didn't finish that order, or you're getting a message from somebody, or you don't want to do the website because they know they're going to come after you on the phone. The circle of, right, the infinity loop of wherever all this information is, There's so many different solutions out there today. Organizations are looking to try to, how do I combine all that? How do I take all that information? And then to your point, what do I do with it? Who handles that? Who manages that moving forward? So it'll be a constant challenge with everybody, right? And what's more important than hitting the website versus listening to the phone calls, to how do we proactively tell our clients what's happening? How well do we
Let's
know our clients? Yeah.
let's talk about the expansion, the evolution here a little bit. So I'll give you a scenario. Let's say a customer starts with the recordings, and they're going through and they're using this for to monitor and get 100% QA coverage across all their phone calls. And after doing that for a while, they realize like, hey, there's we've gone through and we've done training, we've doing process improvement internally, and now we're going to expose this in terms of agent assist, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
now we have this corpus of information,
Mm-hmm.
and we're gonna link in our knowledge base and whatever our CRM tools, and we're gonna present the agent on the call with a screen that gives them as they're talking, right? So now they're talking, and they're getting, the AI is giving them information in real time in front of them. They don't have to go out and search for it; they can find it. What's the step that takes you from that into the AI actually interacting with a customer in real time? Like, is it we've identified things that we think we can deflect? Is it we're trying to, like what becomes that line? It's now we're ready for it. Now we should do it. This is how we tackle it. Let's start with this thing in our IVA first. Like what's the process?
So if I hear you, so you have my data, I have my post analytics, I have my QA, been there, done that.
Yep.
I've moved now into real time. I'm coaching my agents real time as they speak. At what point does that say, okay, now I'm ready? We talk
Yeah.
about growing, right? The journey. Now I'm ready for that virtual agent up front.
Yep.
When you see that real time agent handling those mundane things, those repeatable, um, tactical things that can be taken off their plate. You
Mm-hmm.
talk about resetting my passwords. That's so common in the financial world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, how many times in real time is someone saying, "Great, yeah, let me reset that for you"? You're getting more accurate data in that real time widget than you would if you were not using that at all. You take those trends and figure out, okay, does my IVA just need to have a bot off one of those nodes, because I just spent an enormous amount in replacing my IVR with an IVA, but that IVA is not doing everything that I need it to do. But based on the data that I'm getting real time from my agents, I need to either add a node on my IVA, I need to tweak my IVA with an address, a direction. Um, Maybe we need to be proactive with the IVA, the gardening example. Um, Using that data all combined, we're seeing these trends and working with a supplier that can kind of help you see what those trends are and the impact, the business impact of those trends, right? The call volumes, the repeatable information. Yeah.
So we should really just look at this from a standpoint of, you're going to get into a scenario of continuous, improvement, and you're just looking for this like flywheel to start spinning of, oh, we see a lot of trend here. Can we automate this? Okay, automate it. Come back. Okay, what's the next big trend here? Can we automate it? And you just kind of keep spinning around in the circle a little bit.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. IVA can be changed, and the beauty of what these new agentics are doing, it can be done on a daily basis if you wanted to. Right? I mean, you could
Mhm.
literally go in and, hey, this week we need to do this, but based on last week's results, or Monday, Tuesday of this week, we need to change this.
You call into a company and you get their IVR, or you get an IVA, right? You get their recording, right? And it's like your call is monitored for quality assurance purposes, which, to your point earlier, like what percentage of them actually are. But then the second thing that you hear immediately is like, depending on the type of business, it might be like press 1 for store hours, or whatever, right? Maybe it's regional or dial in but then you're going to get like press 2 for sales, press 3 for service, press 4 for this, press 5 for that, and you get these nodes. You get these trees that are going to take you down different paths, and as part of it was for routing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to a salesperson or to a support person, when do the IVAs get smart enough that goes away completely, and you call in and it says to you, thank you for calling, thank you for calling itbroker.com. How can I help you? Right. And you get this, just what sounds like a person answering your call. And you could say, hey, I need I'm having a problem logging in. My password isn't working. And the system just goes, oh, okay, great. I can help you with that right now. Or you say, I need help with this other thing. And it says, oh, hold on a second. I'll transfer your call, and that gating of that experience changes to be more human.
Yeah, that's actually available today. What we're seeing is you call in, and what you want to do is your multi-factor authentication. Let me validate that it's Max
Mhm.
calling in. Let me ask you a couple questions. Blah blah blah. Get that through, right? 2 years ago was let me validate you, Max, and then get you to the right person. Then it's transferring you, right?
Mhm, mhm.
But now the IVA it can MFA you, multi-factor authentication you, however design the client wants. Matt, are you calling about that order you did the other day? And you're like, no, 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 I'm not talking about that order at all. I saw something else on the website that I want,
Mhm.
but it knows today, and you can tell it to proactively bring up different topics. Did you want sales service? I see you have this history with us. It gets into that. We talked earlier about how long do you want that conversation to be. The bot can rattle off a bunch of stuff that the client's like, ooh, that's pretty scary. How much do you know about me?
A lot.
Versus how long do you want that conversation to be? Or
Mhm.
what are you calling about today, and quickly get in and get out. Um, yeah, that's available today.
So what
Yeah.
you're telling me is, in addition to my rage for companies that don't have virtual hold, I should have an equal amount of rage when I have to call the airline, and then it prompts me through this impossible, tree
Yes,
first.
sir. Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Now convince that same organization to imagine for a moment if you did call in and say you call about this flight or that flight or the one that we delayed. Yeah, yeah, they don't want to go down that path. Yeah, but it's available. Technology can do that today. Yeah,
it's
I would
yeah,
love my airlines to be able to do that.
like it's change is scary. I get it. Change is scary. And especially when you start talking about change at scale is
Yeah,
scary.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's a great point. I mean, we haven't said any brand names and all. We've been very careful about this, but I really like calling into my 800. I've got their number memorized. I like it because they've got a lot of agents behind that phone, and I never talk to a robot. I never talk to a robot, and I can be authenticated by a real person. We can get in and get out. Now, could they adopt change? I'm sure they are looking at. They have to be able to. Um, but the cost of having humans available for all of that, right, is a decision that businesses need to make, because inevitably we will always have those clients that say we will never do that. That is not our. We have to have a person behind that. We'll continue to hire 4 or 5 BPOs, put butts in the seats. That's okay. We're going to see that. Those are the same people potentially that will never go into the cloud, that have their phone system and their PBXs and their hardware and everything in that back office that they're paying AC for to keep it cool.
yeah.
Um, we'll see that, but we'll also see the converse of that. Hyperscalers, going full board and adopting that change.
So far, our conversation has been very externally focused, right? Company that has a call center that's supporting external customers. But what we haven't talked about at all is supporting your internal employee base, right?
Mhm.
And I don't care how big you are, you have, a customer service and support function for your internal teams. And then as you scale and grow and get larger and larger, that becomes a bigger and bigger issue for you. So how how should companies be thinking about this and approaching this also just on their internal side of things?
That's great, great comment. We have a retail client that a very large retail client, and any enterprise client, X amount of employees, right? Seasonality of renewing your health plan,
Oh, geez.
as a compliancy piece, right? Whether I make changes or not, I have to go in there and say, yeah, no, everything's fine. Wife's the same, kids are the same, yada yada. Yep, click, 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 click. Or maybe I want to make some changes. But either way, let's say I didn't want to make a change at all. We're seeing companies explore ways that AI can help them internally with internal employees because my HR staff is only so many people,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to do this compliancy healthcare revision X times a year. I'm very seasonal, right? So you're talking about I'm not going to pay a license for something that I need for 60 days, right? So companies that size are looking to see what I can automate through AI that without having to buy new systems, right? But so I can be compliant. And the cost of doing that versus let me go hire a bunch of people for 60 days and then riff them, lay them off just because I need something else handled. So that's happening today too.
The use cases for that inside of an organization, I mean, across every department, right? Like this also becomes an interesting thing because it's no longer like a siloed thing where one team owns this platform, right? IT is going to have stuff they could have help with. HR has stuff that they need help with. You used to talk about, insurance renewals have stuff that could help, like this is a long list of
Oh yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Imagine just having in our own company, talking to a bot and tell me about what promotions do we have, what events do we have coming up, where
Mhm.
can I find this information, right? Calling calling a robot internally, and having the bot say, oh yeah, check this website or check this site or this application, whether using back office systems or what. So using a self service tool with your own company to help navigate, orchestrate. Hey, I'm a new hire. Where do I go get information about XYZ sales process or what have you? Imagine calling an IBA with your own company to help you navigate through the waters of that.
I
We
mean,
have
we've been using like language of call, and it's been very like voice centric. But the great thing about these tools as well, and what you're doing is it's not just voice, right? I mean, modalities of being it can text as well as voice, which then means it can basically be any channel that can ride on top of text, right?
Correct. Correct. Yep. The idea with AI isn't necessarily to be just the voice in the real time. It's, I don't want to talk to someone and I want my preference to be text multimodal, right?
Yeah.
So all that's there. And then you have to have those systems talk to the other systems so that if I do text and SMS, but all of a sudden now I hit the website or I do call in, how about that? Now the bot on the voice side says, hey, I saw you hit the website a couple times. Hey, we've been texting back and forth the last few days. Really? You know that, I'm coming in an entry point somewhere else. Clients want that seamless network so that regardless of where that client is looking, seeing, coming in, to have that 360 visual, experience.
So there's an interesting dichotomy with this, which is one hand, you're going to have the tinfoil hat, right? Where it's like, oh, how did you know that I was like doing this already? And like, why do you have this information? But then you have the other side of it, which is just the reality of, oh, I don't have to repeat myself for the 15th time to try to get whatever accomplished I'm trying to accomplish. And, in my world, like I know I'm being monitored 24/7 to like serve me advertising. Like it's just a fact of the world, right? Like at some point we're going to be every store is going to have our face recognized. We're going to walk in, we're going to personalize
Scary.
advertising like Minority Report, right? But but people that are resistant to that or have this like idea of like, oh, I don't want to surface too much information because I'm going to upset somebody. This is still customizable, right? Like this isn't an all or nothing. You could be like, okay, we won't tell the bot to surface all the information and still play dumb. That's an option for them, right?
Correct. Absolutely. You talked about guardrails earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Guardrails could easily be, yeah, keep the conversation specific to XYZ. Yeah. You know those things are available to it, but code parameters can be written as such that keep the conversation in line in your swim lane. Talk about this with the end result being this. Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's date this now, right? So as you look, I mean, you talked about like roadmaps. The AI is accelerating so fast, right? And just the pace of this is just out of control. As you look down the next 6 to 12 months, and we start talking about like near enough horizon that we have a relatively good expectation of it coming to fruition, right? Not what happens in 3 years, but like what happens over the next 12 months. What um what are you really excited about? Like what do you see coming here changing? And I mean that could be a technology question or that could be like a
Mm-hmm.
deployment operations use question, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we've had 3 product releases since we began the show today. Um, you look at this, and we've talked about the acceptance level of AI. We've
Mhm.
talked about the resistance or hesitation to, but the reality is it's lightning speed. It will continue to grow. It'll continue to advance, and by human nature, we will constantly see new technologies develop, advance, and companies will adopt at whatever pace they want to adopt. Um, with that in mind, I'm super excited about what's happening in the future. I foresee the ability to say we'll be able to do this podcast like we are today, Max, with virtual agents that think, sound, and write like we do. So those times where you're double booked, those times where you really want to be in two spots at one time, you'll have the comfort knowing that your virtual agent will act, look, talk, and think like you and give you notes and summarizations of things that you couldn't do.
Absolutely
Now,
wild.
take that to a whole nother level. What we're talking about are LLMs talking to each other and IVAs talking to each other that you've approved, right?
Hmm.
That you've written guardrails for, and that you've been able to summarize for. And if we're on this call in a real time way, your virtual agent calls you and says, you know what, you really need to come to this podcast. There's stuff going on here you need to be. That's the exciting part. It's like, wow, you know what, I need to go because there's another call coming in from my virtual agent that I really need. That's, I mean, now, are people willing to and want to accept that? We'll see. We'll see what the adoption rate is for that. How many meetings can we be double, triple booked for? Yeah.
When you're getting into conversations, or your team is out having conversations with new customers, with people looking, what is something that you wish more people knew about Observe AI and AI, in the space in general, coming into the conversation that you think would make things better for them?
I think, we talked about point solutions. You brought up platforms. I think clients get overwhelmed, rightfully so,
Hmm.
based on how much is out there. Um, I use that crawl, walk, run methodology because the idea being, let me provide information to you in a very digestible way. We want to earn your credit. We want to be able to validate our solution with you, um, based on our platform and the number of enrichments that we might be able to offer someone. My hope is that we'll continue to better understand what the client's needs are, either fix their bleeding, their hemorrhaging, or have a better, more healthier operational efficiency discussion about what AI could do for their business, and really understand and build that roadmap with them so that we're not here to say buy every enrichment, buy every SKU that we have. We're here to say, why don't we handle what you're looking for today at the
Hmm.
best of our ability to allow them the ability to grow the way they want to grow and as fast as they want to grow, and not try to say you have to buy this license and utilize 50% of the license. No, but buy a license and enrichment that works for you. Choose the features that you need and have the ability. We're going to be having, I keep saying these enrichments. We're going to have the ability for clients to choose different enrichments within their scope of license and be able to change those enrichments based on what their needs are, based on their changing environment, as opposed to having a QBR and saying, we're paying XYZ for this license, but I'll be damned if I'm using, but 60% of it, there's no value here. That needs to go away, right?
Hmm.
So we're
Yeah.
recognizing the full value of what we can do, and as we continue to grow, yeah, our sales team and operations teams working closely with clients to get that message out there.
Awesome. Jim, thank you very much. I
Thanks for
always
your
love the
time,
chat.
Max. Yeah, great conversations. Good stuff. Good stuff.